welcome back to SweatNBullets Ranch. Most of our videos are related to gardening and homesteading, but that's not all that we do here on the ranch. Last fall we put a video out that was hunting blind tips, and that was well received, and so people that like to hunt often like to fish, so we're going to do another video today for you that is not related to gardening, but in this video we're going to show you how to make some jig heads for fishing. Alright, some of the tools we're going to be using are some jig molds. These are do-it molds. We have some lead. This is just a lead ingot to melt to get your lead from. You got your hooks for your jig heads, and this is an electric pot. Obviously it's not plugged in right now and on, but this is where the lead gets melted up in the top part. Raise this lever and the lead will come, molten lead will come dumping out here. You can see there's a little bit of discoloration on the top here of the lead. When you melt that lead, and once it becomes liquid, all the impurities, most of the impurities will come floating to the top, and you can just take an old screwdriver and kind of just gather them up and scrape them off the top, and it keeps your lead clean. Alright, so this is going to be our first example. This is a Do-It Molds Minnow Head jig. One thing that I have done was just write the sizes up here on the top so that I can tell when I'm pouring them. This is what the inside of the mold looks like, and the sizes are like this one says 3/8 ounce with a 3/0 hook. Tells you use Eagle Claw 570 or 575 hook. And then that's just the opposite side. So we're going to show you an example of pouring one of these. So we're going to use this 1/16 ounce head. You can, if you have all the different sizes of hooks and you're pouring and you want all the different sizes, you can definitely do all of them at the same time. You don't have to do one at a time, but for this example I'm just going to show you one. So we've got a hook in the 1/16 here. You can see where the eye of the hook goes, and then it just sits in there flat like that. Then when you close the mold up, one thing you want to check is to make sure this gap right here is closed all the way like that. If it's open a little bit, that means that you don't have one of your hooks is probably keeping it from being closed all the way. So we're just going to put this over here. We've got our nozzle. Go. Okay. This is a bottom pour pot that we're using here. If you have a dipper, it's the same idea. It's just a little different. Now we'll open this up. Sometimes they stick on one side or the other, but you can see that just takes just a second for it to cool. Now we're just going to wiggle this back and forth a few times, and it breaks right off of there. And there's our jig head. So now we're going to come back in just a minute, and we're going to show you that orange mold right there, which is a different one, and I'll show you what we're doing with it. Alright, this is a different mold. We're still making jig heads. This is a pony head jig, this is a Do-It Molds pony head jig. 1/16 ounce. You can see the model number there on the mold. But we'll open that up, and you can see this mold. This is a 1/16 ounce, and they're all the same. Even though there are 6 cavities, they'll all be the same. It's made for a number 4 hook, Eagle Claw, either 570 or 575. The 575 is just a gold plated hook. The 570 is just a bronze hook. So what it is, and then this side over here will tell you that this one uses a number 12 crane swivel and then it recommends a 0 or 00 blade, and then a 0 split ring. You can adjust that, but we're going to show you how to do it with the stuff that they recommend right now. Now we're going to show you how the hooks go in. So just like on the other mold, it sits in there. It's got a flat spot for the eye of the hook, and then the wire just lays down in there. And this one, because it has a swivel molded into it, you have to put that in whenever you mold the jig head. So there's our little barrel swivel. You can see it, or crane swivel. You can see that it's in there. It has a spot to put that, and then as that hot lead comes in there, the lead is all that you really need to hold that spinner, the swivel in there, because it's not really under a lot of pressure, so you don't have to have it attached to the hook in any way. The lead will just hold it in there. We're going to load the rest of these up, and then we'll come back and show you how we pour them. Alright, here we already have these loaded up. You can see we've got our swivels all right in place. The hooks are good to go. And we're going to fold this up now carefully. Oh, one thing I want to point out while we're doing that, actually I need to replace this hook because the points broke off of this hook. Look at that. But this is a good opportunity to show you. You'll notice this hook, this mold is designed for this hook. And it comes down, and then it has the cutout or the relief cut for that hook. It just fits up there real nicely. We're gonna go ahead and pour these up, and then we're gonna show you something that we're gonna modify this mold a little bit to make it suit our likings a little better. So we're gonna close this up. I'm gonna check the gap. We got it all closed. Remember, if it's open a little bit, you'll be able to tell that you don't have something in there lined up right. Ooh. Just 1 second. It's not wanting to shut off. I gotta adjust that a little bit. There we go. Okay, now these are small, so it don't take very long at all to get enough lead in there. That lead gets below the melting point pretty quickly, and so we can open this up almost right away. Now they'll still be hot to touch. We'll just remelt that. But then as you pop them out of here, just like the other ones, they have a little sprue, they call it a sprue, up on top, and you can just grab a hold of that and wiggle it back and forth, and then there's your jig head. Now this jig head will, to finish it up, if you want to paint them, I lose crappie jigs fast enough that I typically don't paint a lot of them. If I'm using monofilament, if I'm using braid, I can hang on to them a lot longer, so I can paint some of those. But if you do choose to pour this style head and you want to paint them, you're going to want to tape, or I guess depending on what kind of paint you're using. If you're using just like a spray paint, you could just put a glove on and cover up that part of the swivel, because if you get paint in here, that swivel will not turn, and then you'll be defeating the purpose of having the spinner blade on there. But later on, you'll come back and put a split ring and a blade on that, and we'll show you that in just a minute. All right, this is a size 0 Indiana blade, and this is a size 0 split ring. If you remember when we looked at the mold, that's what it recommended for sizes. Could probably actually use a double aught on the blade, which is a little smaller blade, and it'd still be okay. You can use the Colorado blades are more round, and you can use those. You can even use the willow leaf blades, depending on what you're trying to do. But on this, I'm just going to hold this with the pliers and then kind of wedge that in there, and you see how that opens that up. And so now I'm going to get our jig head over here. All right, try again. Okay, I'm just going to use the blade to kind of open up that split ring. Maybe. I have some split ring pliers that I should probably go get, and it makes this easier. But I kind of wanted to show you this without anything, like specialized equipment. There we go. Okay, now I don't know how well you can see that, but the split ring is open. Now I'm just going to thread this on there. Try not to stab myself too many times, because that's a swivel is turning freely. Alright, now we got it on there. Now I can just turn it around, and there you go. That's your little when those first came out, I think it was Blakemore, it was always called a road, they called it a road runner for some reason, but that's that's kind of a trademarked name though. So, but that style of head, that's what made them popular, and they work good. You put a little curly tail on that and just throw it out, reel it in slow, let the blade turn and the tail wiggle, and catch all kinds of fish on them. All right, now we're going to go over to the mold and show you a modification that we're making. Okay, as we showed you just a little bit ago, when you put your hook in this mold, you put the eye in the little space for the eye, the wire comes down, there's the cutout right here, or here in this case. Then it has this stuff, the aluminum is molded so that it's actually molded, I guess, this part's machined, to where this has clearance, so that when you close the mold, it doesn't get pinched in there. And that's a number 4 hook. This one is a number 2 hook, so I want to put a little bit bigger hook in this on those 16th ounce heads. But you can see the problem that we're running into is that we're having a clearance issue, because the point hits right here. In fact, let me get you a different hook, and some of them, they're not all bent exactly the same, and so some of them are more obvious than the others. But what I'm going to do then is I'm just going to take a Dremel tool, and I'm going to go in here and make a clearance. I'm just going to take that part of that mold out. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but I'm just going to allow for clearance for the point of that hook, so that it doesn't get pinched in the mold whenever we want to make those, and it will still work just fine when we want to put the smaller hooks back in them. You can see there's already no issue with the smaller one, so having this little piece gone isn't going to make any difference with the smaller one, but it will allow us to use that bigger hook. So I'm just going to go through here and mark these out, and then I'll show you how I'm taking that out with the Dremel tool. Now I have my Dremel tool. I'm just going to use a cutoff wheel, and all I have to do is just go in here and just to remove this part. I've got them all marked out with the Sharpie there, and so I'm just going to take off the magic markered area down to this level, and that will be enough clearance. I went ahead and marked both sides. So over on this side, I'm going to take off that little spot, and we'll take it all the way down, not all the way down, it's not very far at all actually, down to this level right here. And that's just going to allow that to close, that mold to close, and not have interference with the hooks. So we're going to get started on that, and we'll show you what we're doing here. We're just going to start off not terribly fast. we've taken our Dremel tool and we've ground out this area. Now this hook point has clearance and it's not going to get pinched in the mold, and so we're able to use this larger number 2 hook into this mold. And this is just clearance, so it's not critical at all. If you were going to actually do something to the shape of the mold, you'd want to have a machine, like a milling machine, to do that, and you'd want to do it and it'd be a lot more accurate. I've adjusted some molds, or one of my molds at least, for a weed guard that wasn't, it was a bigger weed guard than it was designed for, but I was able to do that on a mill. But for just this adjustment right here, sure, if you had a mill and you had the extra time and wanted to do it that way, you could make it extra fancy, but there's no need to get that fancy with this because this is just clearance. But you can see here, each of these hook points now is not going to bind up when we close this. We're going to give this a close now. We're able to close all the way. And we're going to give this a pour. Okay. Open this up. Looks like everything made just fine. But once again, we're just going to take these, grab a hold of that sprue, give it a couple of wiggles, and there we go. Now we have the same jig head with a little bit larger hook. All right, here's a couple of the finished product jig heads that we just made in our pony head mold. And honestly, you can paint these. Typically, when I throw this particular jig head, I'm only using 4 or 6 pound test line, and I lose these so fast that I don't bother painting them. But in this case, your jig head is ready to accept a soft plastic body, or you could tie a marabou onto this as well. We might show you that sometime. If you're interested, leave a comment and we'll look at doing a jig tying sometime. In this case, I've got a 2-inch tube body, and I can just thread this on here. Push that up over that barb, and that is ready to tie on and go catch you a mess of crappie this spring. Thank you for joining us again today here at SweatNBullets Ranch. If you're interested in more videos of this nature, whether it's pouring more jig heads or maybe doing some powder painting or tying jigs or even tying some flies or rod building, if you're interested in that kind of outdoor stuff, let us know and we'll try to get some more videos for you. Until next time, thank you for joining us. God bless.